Next up, we're learning about the different theories of motivation, or different theories that attempt to explain why we're motivated to act, or what kind of underpins our motivation. And we can break these down into two categories: the nature theories that say that our motivations are biologically based, nurture theories that say that our motivations are dependent upon what we've learned and how we think. So first up is instinct theory, which has pretty much been replaced by the evolutionary perspective, but it's just the theory that says that many of our behaviors are motivated by natural selection. They promote survival. So instead of instinct, we use the term fixed action pattern. Think about the raccoon that couldn't be taught to put the coins in the piggy bank because their instinct says to dip the coins in the water, or rather, dip the objects in the water and rub them together as they would when they're cleaning their food. We're going to learn about baby birds that engage in something called imprinting, where they imprint or attach onto the first moving object that they see after they're born, which in most cases is going to be their mother, but in other cases, perhaps it won't be. Maybe you've actually seen videos online of, baby ducklings that have imprinted on to the first human that they see and then follow that human around. Our fight or flight response is an example of a fixed action pattern in that response that we have enables our survival. And our next nature theory is drive reduction theory. Remember, we talked about a drive in our last video, and we know that a drive is a biological need, like hunger or thirst. Drive reduction theory says that our motivations come from the need to reduce these drives. So in other words, if I'm hungry, I'm going to get up and I'm going to get something to eat. If I'm thirsty, I'm going to get up and get something to drink. The hypothalamus, remember, is the part of the brain that is responsible for, it's like the brain's internal blood lab. It's monitoring fluid levels. It's monitoring fat stores in the bloodstream. And just like a thermostat works in your house, where if, a temperature is dropping below what you want it to be, it's going to enable the heat to kick on and to bring that temperature up to where you've set the thermostat. That's the same way that your body works in terms of maintaining homeostasis. So drive reduction theory just says we act in order to reduce these biological drives. This is too simplistic. It certainly doesn't explain all of our behaviors. For example, if we're only motivated at all times to maintain homeostasis, why on earth would we engage in very risky behaviors like you see here? It can't be applied to everything. Think about this. What do you do when you're bored? What do you do when you're feeling stressed, when you're feeling anxious? Chances are, when you're bored, you seek out something to do that's going to raise your level of arousal. And when you're really amped up, you're going to seek out activities that bring your level of arousal down. This is explained by arousal theory, which says that we're motivated to maintain an optimal level of arousal. We act to either decrease or increase our levels of arousal depending on where we are at any given time. So if I'm in a state of low arousal, I may go watch an exciting movie or go for a jog. Just kidding. I would never actually go for a jog, but maybe you would go for a jog because I don't run. If you're in a state of high arousal, you might look for ways to relax, such as meditating or reading a book. I just want to remind you of that Yerkes Dodson inverted U, right? That says that there's an optimal level of arousal that is required for peak performance. This is fitting in with that, just essentially saying that at all times we're motivated to act because we're trying to maintain this optimal level of arousal. Now we're getting into the nurture theories, or the learning and cognitive end of this. So cognitive theory talks about the importance of our expectations on our motivations. So we might select some behaviors over others because we have an expectation that we're going to be able to attain a goal. Like I might choose studying over partying because I know that that's going to result in me getting a good grade. But our beliefs and our control over our circumstances can vary, not just from person to person, but even within a person. Our locus of control is our individual sense of where our life influences originate. So what influences what happens to me? Do I believe that I have the ability to control my life? I want you to pay really close attention here. Locus of control is the belief in the ability to control our lives, not literally whether or not I can control my life, but my belief in my ability to control my life. This is a really important distinction. And if you were to see this on a free response question and just say locus of control is, so-and-so's ability to control their lives, that would be wrong. Because this is a perception, it's a belief that we have about our ability to control our circumstances. So if I have an internal locus of control, it means I believe I have control over my circumstances. I can get good grades if I study and I do my work. And that expectation is likely built out of experiences that I've had. Whereas if I have an external locus of control, my circumstances, I believe my circumstances are beyond my control. It's the teacher's fault. She's biased. She grades unfairly. Well, think about which of these scenarios or which locus of control would produce greater levels of motivation. Internal locus of control, right? I'm going to be more motivated to act when I feel like I believe I have control over my circumstances. So cognitive theory is explaining how these beliefs can influence our motivations. And maybe you remember Maslow from way back in the beginning of the year. We learned about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Maslow said that we're first motivated to fulfill our most basic biological needs. Then our motivation turns to our safety needs. Then our need to belong. Then our need to feel esteem or self-worth. Then our need for self-actualization, which is, us seeking to realize our own potential. But there's another thing that Maslow talked about more towards the end of his life, and I don't have it on the slide, but I'd like for you to write it down. Something called self-transcendence. Maslow said that people will also experience what is called self-transcendence. They will reach this level where not only are they self-actualized and, they explore their own potentials, but where they transcend beyond the self. They seek meaning and purpose in life and community. Right? Their concerns become greater than just themselves. And those concerns become about a larger community to which they belong. And that's self-transcendence. So again, motivation in terms of Maslow is being motivated to move up this hierarchy. Our affiliation need is rooted in our survival. We can look back to our ancestors and say, well, it would have been more advantageous for us to belong to a tribe than to be out wandering on our own, right? And how this translates today is that we have a very, very intense need to belong to a group, whether or not we realize it or want to acknowledge it. Our social identity really boosts our health and our well-being when we have those systems of social support. They're so important. And this affiliation need influences our behavior. It can lead us to situations where we're conforming or we're yielding to group pressure, where we're obeying authority. These are things we study in our social psych unit. And the pain of social exclusion or ostracism is very intense for human beings. There's research that shows that ostracism activates some of the same regions of the brain that are active when we are experiencing physical pain. So we'd also call this affiliation need a motive, in the sense that we're motivated to belong, to feel like we belong to a group. And incentive theory, I'm just kind of breezing over because we spend a whole unit on learning and kind of understanding this Skinnerian view that we are motivated by incentives or by rewards. So in other words, if we do a behavior and we're rewarded for it, we're likely to be motivated to repeat that behavior. That's incentive theory.